Good morning, friends. It's me, your boy Max Mogren, reporting live from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming on a cold, snowy, wet April 30th. This is Wake Up Wyoming here at Wake Up News on the algorithmically censored Facebook. We got a big show today. As usual, we're looking at the Jackson Hole Daily, the paper servicing the wealthiest county in the United States of America. So if you wanted to know what propaganda the billionaires are reading when they're on vacation at their multi-million-dollar log cabins, I'll let you know today. Top story today, we're going to look at a heartbreaking situation that recently went down out on the elk refuge where a young woman apparently, it's been ruled a suicide, and we're going to take a little look at that. Our hearts go out to all her friends and family members, everybody affected by that situation. But we're going to look at her most recent Instagram post, and I don't know, it doesn't really paint the picture of somebody who is struggling, on the verge of ending their own life. Anybody needs help, you can get mental health support 24 hours a day by calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Or here locally, the Jackson Hole Community Counseling Center has a 24-hour hotline as well at 307-733-2046. So we're going to take a look at that heartbreaking situation. There's a meeting tonight to discuss the landslide, Porcupine Creek, and the subsequent indefinite road closure of the Grays River Road. That's tonight, 5 p.m. at the Alpine Civic Center. I'll be there. Maybe you will too. We're going to look at, again, the Jackson Hole Daily, an excellent article from Caitlin Johnstone as well about top Democrats openly admitting to rigging primary elections. Looking at the wars in the Middle East, looks like Syria got bombed again. The Israelis attacking the Palestinian protesters again. Of course, the U.S. backing Israel and Saudi Arabia in their coordinated actions against Iran and Syria. Interestingly, Saudi Arabia has already chopped the heads of 48 of their citizens off in the first 4 months of 2018. Where's the human rights outrage over that? We're going to be looking at the opioid epidemic and states and the federal government attempting to impose taxes on opioid painkillers. And of course, the situation in Afghanistan, where strangely they grow a huge percentage of the world's opioids, huge percentage of the world's opium crop coming from Afghanistan under the direct supervision of the United States military. Then we're going to look at tech, the blowback against Facebook, Google, and Amazon, how to delete info that Instagram has on you, and this really shocking story out of China where they're using wireless technology to monitor the brain waves of workers. So let's get right into it. Thank you all for tuning in. We got an audience, 50 viewers. Let me get this screen up. Again, heartbreaking story here locally. Suicide on the Elk Refuge Road. For those that don't know, the Elk Refuge Road, right outside of town in Jackson. A young woman, 24-year-old woman named Rachel Rafferty, pronounced dead at the scene, died of a single gunshot wound to the head. She's from Colorado Springs, Colorado. This article on Buck Rail says she was new to the area, but just a quick look at her social media reveals that I think this was her third summer in the Tetons, and it looks like she was here this winter as well. So not entirely accurate reporting there from Buck Rail. Jackson Hole News and Guide. Teton County Coroner Dr. Brent Blue released the identity of the young woman who died Saturday. Rachel Kathleen Rafferty, 24, of Colorado Springs, Colorado, had been recently working and camping in Jackson. Okay, she was camping. Sounds like she was one of the many people who live outdoors in Jackson. Maybe she chose to, but I know a lot of people live outdoors in Jackson because the rent is too damn high. Passerby found the vehicle on the National Elk Refuge Saturday morning. Okay, so Saturday morning, somebody found her body out on the Elk Refuge. Taking a look at her Instagram. Now, this story really hit me hard this morning because, I was cruising through social media the other day, and this young woman, a comment she made actually came up on a post, and her last name, Rafferty, is common in the area. I clicked on her profile and, just scrolled down a little, and it's like, it seems like a really cool interesting young woman. And when I read the paper this morning and found out she was dead, it really kind of surprised me. Interestingly, her last couple posts, this post 3 days ago, this went up according to Instagram. Let me hide this so you can see. But 3 days ago, so if she died, late Friday, early Saturday, this was posted on Friday. The quote here: if people persist in trespassing upon the grizzlies' territory, we must accept that from time to time grizzlies will harvest a few trespassers. Great quote from Edward Abbey there. Be bear aware, respect the wildlife. So, just good little activist post there. But the one that really struck me was this one, published 4 days ago. You can see a lot of support here from her friends online, 155 likes, all sorts of comments. And again, this was published 4 days ago. So maybe Friday, maybe Thursday, but basically within 48 hours, within 24 to 48 hours of this young woman allegedly taking her own life out there on the elk refuge. This picture here, this could be a current photo, but I think it's probably from last summer or the summer before, because that road up to Curtis Canyon where this photo was taken is currently closed. It actually opened today, so it was closed over the weekend. But listen, read this quote here. Again, I don't, all respect to her and her friends and family. I didn't know her personally, but we definitely had a lot of mutual friends and acquaintances. And it just strikes me as odd. Here's the quote that she wrote just a couple days before her death. The unofficial kickoff to this season, and so it begins. Blessed, blessed, blessed to be here for my 3rd summer. May the lessons this year in the mountains be gentle, the beer tastes great, and the friendship be the highest quality. And scrolling through the comments here, just seems like a lot of support, a lot of positivity. So, I don't know. It just raised a lot of questions for me, and it struck me as odd that I stumbled across this young woman on social media just a few days before her death, or right around the time of her death, apparently. Like 6 days ago, another post, not really. I don't know. It just struck me as odd, and I'm curious to get some answers on this. If anybody was close friends with her and has more information, that'd be great. And if anybody is questioning the ruling of a suicide here, like I know I am, just looking at a couple, what can you tell from somebody's Instagram posts? Quite a bit, actually. But, if anybody is contemplating the possibility that there was some foul play in this situation, hit me up and let's get to the bottom of this together. Moving on, heartbreaking situation there. Again, anybody struggling with depressing thoughts, suicidal thoughts, you can call here in Jackson Hole, the Community Counseling Center, 24 hours a day, 307-733-2046, or nationwide, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Again, just a couple weeks ago, there was another death ruled a suicide near Hoback Junction, 60-year-old Corky Stetson. So, yeah. Moving on here to other news. Enough of that situation. Sorry to start it off on a somber tone. Again, as usual, we're looking at the Jackson Hole Daily here. And as it says in our headlines today, they dropped a little truth bomb unintentionally on the cover in this photo of these women drinking beer at the Snake River Brew Pub. If you can see there, I've got it circled. There's a sticker there on that container. It says 9/11 was an inside job. Can't read it too well on the computer, but I can definitely see it right here. I love that sticker over there at the Snake River Brew Pub. It's important to note, 9/11 was an inside job. Here we see pretty damning evidence. World Trade Center Building 7 falling at free fall speed compared to an acknowledged controlled demolition. Of course, World Trade Center Building 7 was not hit by a plane on 9/11, and it collapsed into its own footprint at free fall speed, unusually hours after the other towers collapsed. No big surprise there for anybody who's paying attention to what's really going on in the world. 9/11, the litmus test. If people aren't aware that 9/11 was an inside job and we've been living under this false narrative ever since, it's time to wake up to that. Speaking of 9/11, coming out of the UPI, published on April 26th, the death toll from 9/11 keeps climbing. In addition to the approximately 3,000 Americans who died on 9/11, many Ground Zero rescue workers are battling cancer years later. Many of the rescue workers who flooded the ruins of the World Trade Center after 9/11 now face their own private battles for survival. A pair of studies show the incidence of cancer, no doubt. But interesting little tidbits of truth in this article from the UPI. When the World Trade Center towers crumbled on September 11th, 2001, people were exposed to a brew of airborne toxins that included a number of known carcinogens, Zieg Owens said. These included dangerous heavy metals, hydrocarbons, and asbestos. Think of an office building that was just pulverized and everything that was in it, Zieg Owens said. All of that is coming down, and people are breathing in that dust. Key thing there, the building was pulverized. That's right, the building's reduced to dust. Some people think they might have used some directed energy weapons there, but it sounds like they just blew it up old school controlled demolition style. Key thing here, planes can't pulverize buildings. Buildings don't collapse into their own footprints at free fall speed due to fire. You all know this. No big surprise there. Coming from our dear friend Caitlin Johnstone. I love what you do, Caitlin. Please keep up the good work. Nancy Pelosi quoted as saying, "I don't see anything inappropriate in rigging primaries." Okay, all this chatter. You know, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't ascribe to the two-party system, and I'm sure you probably don't either. But this is just a key example of, you know, there are many examples of how the elections are rigged, but even the primaries rigged. The Intercept has published a secretly taped audio recording of one of the most powerful Democrats in America pressuring a progressive Democratic candidate to drop out of a Colorado congressional primary race. It hasn't been getting as much attention as the WikiLeaks drops on the DNC's sabotage of the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, because it's not about a presidential race. But make no mistake, this is the single most damning piece of evidence ever published exposing the Democratic Party's war on real progressive. The recording features House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer, the second highest ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives, informing primary challenger Levi Tillemann that if he runs, he will be running against not just the chosen establishment candidate Jason Crow, but against Hoyer and the full might of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the DCCC, as well. Which means effectively Congressman Hoyer, Tillemann is heard saying towards the end of the recording, "I'm running a campaign against Crow and against you and against the DCC because you guys are on Crow's side." "Yeah," replied Hoyer. "You know, frankly, that happens in life all the time." There's a full transcript. You can listen to the video over there at CaitlinJohnstone.com. She also wrote down the full transcript of this secretly recorded conversation between Tillemann, who is a Democratic, he's trying for the Democratic primary in Colorado 6th District. And it's pretty damning evidence. So there you have it. It simply doesn't get any more incriminating than a published recording of a top Democrat informing a progressive candidate that the party will be placing its thumb on the scale against his primary opponent if he doesn't drop out. Or at least that's what I would have thought. Nancy Pelosi, the only House Democrat who outranks Hoyer, somehow surpassed the jaw-dropping revelations in the audio recording by giving Hoyer's actions her full-throated endorsement. "I don't know that a person can tape a person without the person's consent and then release it to the press," Pelosi told reporters today. "In terms of candidates and campaigns, I don't see anything inappropriate in what Mr. Hoyer was engaged in. A conversation about the realities of life in the race as to who can make the general election." That's right. Instead of blaming this evidence on Russian hackers, Democratic Party leadership has opted to try a brand new approach. They're openly admitting to knowingly rigging their primaries against progressive candidates and saying that it's the right thing to do because that's how you win general elections. So, you know, no shortage of monkey business in the democratic process in this country. Arguably, our elections have been rigged, especially big elections like the presidential ones, for a very long time. In the 2012 election, we saw the Republican Party go against the will of its constituency when they shut down the presidential campaign of Ron Paul, who was a favorite. And in the 2016 election, we saw the Democratic Party guilty of exactly the same thing when they shut down the very popular Bernie Sanders campaign and gave it to Hillary. Moving on here. More cheery news. Move over, Chernobyl. Fukushima is now officially the worst nuclear power disaster in history. I'm not even going to read that one. It's over there on Counterpunch. But some good news coming from USA Today, the brilliant journalists at USA Today. Dark chocolate can improve stress, mood, memory, and immunity, studies claim. So there you go. Carrie Mark chiming in. They want more war and no universal health care. That's true, isn't it? That's true. Other good news, thank God, coming from the UPI, published on my birthday, April 27th. The EU has banned the use of 3 neonicotinoid insecticides blamed for bee decline. I think they're being phased out over the course of the next year. Hopefully that happens here in the U.S. as well. What else? Let's get into the paper here real quick, and we'll get into the other headlines on the interwebs. We already covered the heartbreaking death on the Elk Refuge ruled as a suicide. Again, 9/11 Truth finds its way onto the front page of the Jackson Hole Daily. I think that's pretty cool. Winter road closures ending May 1st. Again, the talk tonight at the Alpine Civic Center. I'll be there discussing the closure of the Grays River Road due to the Porcupine Creek landslide. Again, tonight, 5 to 7 p.m. All sorts of opinion pieces on healthcare. You know, healthcare, why don't they just make hospitals list their prices? Great quote. For whatever reason, this one realtor always has great quotes in her ads. Nancy Lee Clancy, keeping it classy. Let us rather run the risk of wearing out than rusting out, so said Theodore Roosevelt. Good quote from a so-called Rough Rider who is actually an East Coast rich boy. Of course, the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. The AP openly admitting that the treaty was broken, and the natives still not happy about that, rightly so. No shortage of Trump bashing in the national and international news. Again, I'm not a fan of Trump, but he is the fall guy, the distractor, divider, and deceiver in chief. And no big surprise here, the former CIA director and now U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Sunday ratcheted up the Trump administration's rhetoric against Iran and gave warm boosts of support to Israel and Saudi Arabia in their standoffs with Tehran. Let's look at that. You know, Iran working side by side with Syria in the wars there. Interestingly, another attack on Syria, Israeli airstrike, dozens of Iranian soldiers reportedly killed. It's amazing how the Saudis, Israelis, United States military, the French, and so forth can just bomb Syria with impunity for no justifiable reason. Most notably, that recent chemical weapons, the alleged chemical weapons attack that has been in the news so much lately. Eyewitnesses from Syria testified at The Hague. There was no attack. There were no victims, no chemical weapons. They say the incident was clearly a staged provocation. Okay, of course, this is coming from RT, but here you can see, the Russian government flew these Syrian eyewitnesses to the chemical attack to Belgium, had them testify, and in addition to there's photographic evidence of these white helmets hanging out in like a dressing room prior to the video going out. There's photographic evidence of the alleged victims of the chemical attack buddying up with these white helmet guys. The whole situation stinks. So Heartbreaking to see the lies in the mainstream used to justify war. Interestingly, this guy, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, was recently in the United States, and he met with all sorts of powerful people like President Trump, Michael Bloomberg, people from all over the place, really powerful, influential people. We're bombing Syria because of supposed human rights violations there. Yet, in Saudi Arabia, the United States' ally, they have beheaded, literally chopped the heads of 48 citizens off with a sword in the first 4 months of 2018. Saudi Arabia has executed 48 people in the past 4 months, half of them on nonviolent drug charges, Human Rights Watch has said. The U.S.-based group urged the kingdom to improve what is called a notoriously unfair criminal justice system. Saudi Arabia has one of the world's highest rates of execution. Suspects convicted of terrorism, homicide, rape, armed robbery, and drug trafficking face the death penalty. Rights experts have repeatedly raised concerns about the fairness of trials in Saudi Arabia, which is governed by a strict form of Islamic law. The government says the death penalty is a deterrent to further crime. So again, this guy, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, widely regarded by the mainstream, by the powers that be, so to speak, as being a really good guy, real progressive guy, yet the Saudis are still beheading their own people. What else we got in the paper here? I'm trying to integrate the paper with the online headlines, getting back into that program. Again, we're going to get into the scopes a little later. Oh, big news. Drug makers oppose attacks on opioids, coming out of the business section of the Jackson Hole Daily today. St. Paul, Minnesota, AP. Facing a rising death toll from drug overdoses, state lawmakers across the country are testing a strategy to boost treatment for opioid addicts. Force drug manufacturers and their distributors to pay for it. Bills introduced in at least 15 states would impose taxes or fees on prescription painkillers. Several of the measures have bipartisan support and would funnel millions of dollars towards treatment and prevention programs. On that note, I read a book that my mom sent me really recently. It's called Drug Dealer MD. I don't see it at the moment. There it is. Actually, a really good book published by Johns Hopkins, written by Ann Lemke, MD, the chief of addiction medicine at Stanford University School of Medicine. And she makes some really good points in this book. I found out that most insurance companies won't pay for addiction treatment. But due to the standards of care in many hospitals, doctors can actually get sued if a patient comes in requesting pain treatment and the doctor doesn't prescribe them what they're looking for. Absurdity in the medical system. In Montana, State Senator Roger Webb, a Republican, sees the approach as a way to hold drug makers accountable for the overdose epidemic that in 2016 claimed 42,000 lives in the U.S., a record. You created the problem, he said. You're going to fix it. Opioids include prescription painkillers such as Vicodin and Oxycontin, as well as illegal drugs such as heroin and illicit versions of fentanyl. Public health experts say the crisis started because of overprescribing and aggressive marketing of the opioid drugs that began in the 1990s. The death toll has continued to rise even as prescribing has started to drop. And let me be clear here, I'm not trying to demonize people who use opioids because they're in extreme pain, right? Interestingly, though, the way this whole thing is playing out, people got hooked on opioids by going to the doctor. Now they go back to their doctor, they find it more difficult to get opioids because this whole media scandal surrounding it. And so what do people do? They turn to street drugs. They turn to heroin, which could be laced with fentanyl from China, which is 50 times more potent than heroin, and arguably caused the deaths of a lot of Americans, including people like Tom Petty and Prince. So this whole opioid thing is a real bummer. I've lost 2 friends to opioids in the last 2 years. Of course, the opioid drug makers are opposing that. Recently here in Wyoming, I covered a story where the state of Wyoming is actually gifting a loan of extremely low interest loan for $25.5 million to Cody Laboratories Incorporated, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Philadelphia-based Delaware Incorporated Lanet Corporation, which manufactures pharmaceuticals. And Cody Laboratories produces opioids, cocaine, amphetamines, and barbiturates for Lanet at their Cody, Wyoming laboratory, which is being subsidized by the government of the state of Wyoming. Of course, where's all this opium coming from? Well, the fine folks at Cody Laboratories are one of 7 facilities in the United States that have federal authorization to import concentrated poppy stock, which is opium, right? They import opium poppies. Where does that opium come from? Well, it comes from all over the world. But 90% of the world's opium is grown in Afghanistan. And Reuters reported yesterday that Afghan farmers are going to stick to growing opium in the face of less lucrative options. Afghan farmers are busy in their poppy fields as the annual opium harvest begins, underscoring the government's failure to stamp out a crop that yields much of the world's supply of heroin. Key thing here, government's failure. Important to note here, though, that the United States has been running Afghanistan since 2001, when we invaded the place. Also important to note that the Taliban, who the United States supported in their war against Russia back in the 1980s, was growing a whole lot of opium up until 2000. And in 2000, they decided that they were tired of being the world's smack manufacturing facility, so they made it illegal, and they cut production of opium in Afghanistan by over 90% in 2001. That's right, the Taliban did that. The Taliban cut down on the opium crop in Afghanistan. Subsequently, the United States invaded Afghanistan, and miraculously, apparently, the United States government couldn't succeed when it came to cracking down on opium like the Taliban could, because in the 17 years since, opium production has reached new record levels every year since. Despite years of effort to replace it, the banned crop is a vital part of the South Asian nation's economy. Opium production hit a record in 2017, up 87% over 2016, the UN says. Last year, the government distributed more than 10,000 tons of seeds to farmers to persuade them to grow wheat, along with 20,000 tons of urea, widely used as fertilizer for food grains. But they're going to keep growing opium. Why? Because they're allowed to grow opium. More than 3,000 square kilometers, 1,158 square miles of arable land in Afghanistan was under poppy cultivation last year, the Counter Narcotics Ministry said. So there you go. There's your mainstream media hard at work digging deep. Here's the funny thing, though. Okay, if there are 1,158 square miles of land in Afghanistan devoted to poppy cultivation, and the combined efforts of the occupying United States military and the Afghan government can't stop that, can't decrease that. In fact, opium production hit a record in 2017, up 87% over 2016. Maybe, just maybe, they're not actually trying to cut down on the opium production in Afghanistan. And arguably the opioid epidemic, which is ravaging the United States of America, killing Americans, ruining people's lives, destroying communities, etc., is being intentionally brought to our shores. You reap what you sow. And in Afghanistan, under the watchful eye of Uncle Sam and his counterparts in the Afghani government, opium production is thriving. You know, if they really wanted to crack down on opium fields, think how easy it'd be. Okay, go out and look for the fields where there are these pretty flowers and these beautiful bulbs growing, right? And what would you have to do to take out the opioid crop? I think you'd have to go over there to Amazon.com and buy yourself a weed whacker. There you go. You can get yourself a weed whacker on Amazon.com for $94.99. If you armed the Afghani government and whatever American soldiers are there with a couple hundred weed whackers, they could take out the opium crop of Afghanistan pretty quickly. So there's your tax dollars at work, America. Gotta love it. Thank you all for tuning in. Sorry, the show's a bit depressing today. Again, remember, we live in an era of weaponized information, right? The mainstream media is designed to distract us, to deceive us, to divide us, to deter us, to depress us, and all that other stuff. So don't let the bastards get you down. One person I like to go read from when I'm feeling a little down, real smart guy, Charles Hugh Smith, over there at of2minds.com. And he wrote on Thursday, April 26, 2018, that the blowback against Facebook, Google, and Amazon is just beginning. Let's get into some tech news there. But first, an incisive comment from Daniel Reichert. Flamethrowers will do the same, right? Or they could just spray, let's be real here. If they really wanted to decrease opium production in Afghanistan, they could go ahead and re-implement Operation Ranch Hand, which they did over Vietnam. U.S. military operation during the Vietnam War, lasting from 1962 to 1971, where they were spraying Agent Orange and a lot of other toxic chemicals out of airplanes over Vietnam, causing horrible birth defects and such. If they wanted to kill the opium crop in Afghanistan, they could spray their nasty chemicals all over the 1,500 and some square miles of opium growing in Afghanistan. But moving on to tech news. By the way, Operation Ranch Hand involved spraying toxic chemicals on the unsuspecting populace of Vietnam back in 1960, or 62 to 71. Right around the same time, there was another covert aerial spray program going on in Vietnam called Operation Popeye, which was literally weaponized cloud seeding. That's right. More than 50 years ago, the United States military was already using cloud seeding to own the weather, as the Air Force put it so eloquently in their 1996 document, Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather by 2025. You want to talk tech news? There's some big tech. And go look at the sky overhead. You'll see them spraying shit in the sky just about every day. Important to note, sorry I'm on a little tangent here, but when you see the planes out there, I just gotta bring it up. When you see the planes out there laying down trails at 30 to 40,000 feet that linger and spread and turn into a high wispy cirrus haze, it's important to note here. I wanted to bring up this video from yesterday. I shared this yesterday. Here's a prime example of this. You can see this video from April 27th, my birthday, just a couple days ago. When you see the planes doing that, it's important to note that these high wispy cirrus clouds contribute to global warming. That's right. They are changing the climate with these artificially induced cirrus clouds that let most of the sun's energy through, but trap the heat that would otherwise radiate back out into space. Okay, I know I was going into tech news, but I'll go off on a little geoengineering / chemtrails / weather warfare tangent first. Again, can't stress it enough. When you see this disgusting skyscape overhead, just remember that those high wispy cirrus clouds, these planes flying at 30 to 40,000 feet, creating high wispy cirrus clouds, that are ice. It's so cold up there that it's ice. And we all know that water, snow are incredible insulators. We all know that the coldest nights of the year are those crystal clear nights where you look up and you can see the stars. You know, the coldest nights of the year, if it's 20 below, I guarantee you're not going to see cloud banks like this overhead because these clouds trap heat. So Anne Marie Campbell saying, first time I've listened to you, hard to get excited with all the happy information you are distributing. And I'm sorry, man, I don't write the news, I just report it. You know what I mean? And we're trying to raise awareness. You know, if you're depressed by this sort of information, take some time for you. Focus on things you can really do and change in your own life, right? If everybody on the planet would get their own shit together, this problem, all these problems would arguably solve themselves. So, you know, what can we do? Well, we can stay aware. We can try to become as informed as possible. We can try to wake other people up. But bottom line is, if you're not enjoying your life, you're not happy, what's the point of being alive? Moving on here, back to other tech news. The blowback against Facebook, Google, and Amazon is just beginning. This is how we end up with a neo-feudal society that benefits the protected few at the expense of the powerless, exploited many, says Charles Hugh Smith of twominds.com. Blowout earnings from Facebook and Amazon have cheered Wall Street, but institutional owners might want to focus not just on blowout earnings, but rising blowback against the tech superpowers, Facebook, Google, and Amazon. The blowback is social and political. People are starting to question the social and political costs of these tech darlings' dominance and the billions in profits they reap. The typical corporation can buy political influence, but Facebook and Google are manipulating the machinery of democracy itself. Of course, so are the Democratic and Republican parties and the global banking elites and all that. That's a much more dangerous type of power than buying political influence or manipulating public opinion by opaciously publishing biased news. We all understand how corporate media undermines democracy. Recall how every time Bernie Sanders won a Democratic primary in 2016, the New York Times and the Washington Post reported the news in small typeface in a sidebar, while every Hillary Clinton primary win was trumpeted in large headlines at the top of page 1. But this sort of manipulation is visible. What Google and Facebook do is invisible. I recently addressed these invisible but oh so profitable mechanisms in a series of essays. And here, you know, Charles Hugh Smith, very prolific writer, a bunch of essays there. It goes on and on. The blowback against these tech giants is just getting started as people awaken to the dangers posed by these fast metastasizing tech quasi-monopolies. The most dangerous dynamics in America are the erosion of the mechanics of democracy by wealth and corporate power, and the erosion of middle-class employment in favor of maximizing corporate profits by any means available. This is how we end up with a neo-feudal society that benefits the protected few at the expense of the powerless, exploited many. Facebook, Google, and Amazon are each accelerating this erosion, not by accident, but as a direct consequence of their business model and sources of profit. Greg L. Cheney chiming in. Thanks for the support there, brother. I appreciate that. Here you can see the fruit of financialization, soaring income inequality. The super wealthy garner virtually all of the income growth, while back in 1980, lower income households had the highest growth. You can see that quite clearly there. So that's frustrating. But what do you do? I don't know. But some of Jeff Bezos' own workers, you know you're fucking up, pardon my French, you know you're fucking up when you're apparently, allegedly, the world's richest man. Of course, some people have a lot more money than Jeff Bezos. But according to the mainstream media, Jeff Bezos is the world's richest man, and he gets booed by his own workers. Last week, Amazon finally disclosed its workers' median annual salary, which at a paltry $28,446 annually put Amazon on par with Hershey, slightly above retailer Home Depot, and almost 10 times below the $240,430 median annual compensation at Facebook, according to recent proxy filings. That's right, the average worker at Amazon making $28,446 annually. Jeff Bezos made $10 billion in a day. But this explains why Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos was booed and received a hostile reception from his own workers when he arrived in Berlin on April 24th to pick up an innovation award. Goes on and on. Yeah, so it's cool to see people standing up. Of course, we're living in this era where a lot of jobs are being replaced by robots pretty quickly. This is pretty wild. These are some of the warehouse robots at the Amazon fulfillment centers, as they call them. Pretty amazing little forklift units here that can pick up a huge rack of product and buzz it along to its location. Michael and Leslie, and light up, Leslie. Thanks for letting me know. Just showcasing these crazy robots that are able to pick up shelves. Anyway, there you go. That's that. If you want to do something about all these companies, remember Instagram, owned by Facebook. You could delete your Facebook account. You could delete your Instagram account. But then how are you going to get your Wake Up News? It's a catch-22. It's a real dilemma, right? Of course, here at Wake Up News, we're on a page with 540,000 likes. That's a pretty good-sized page, yet I can't seem to build an audience of more than 100 people, even with my dear friend, the editor-in-chief at Wake Up News, Zachary Coons, attempting to share these videos as widely as possible. But, you know, if you want to delete your Instagram and all of your stuff, I'll paste that in there. It's kind of cool. This is actually from the mainstream, but they're showing how to delete all your data from Instagram. You can get a copy of everything Facebook knows about you. You can download a copy of everything Google knows about you, and you can find out what Amazon knows about you, coming from CNBC of all places. So if you're bored and you want to go down that rabbit hole, go right ahead. I pasted that one into the comments. But as they say, no matter how bad it gets, it could always be worse. It could always be worse. And the Chinese leading the way when it comes to the suppression of human thought, the rise of artificial intelligence and robotics. This is crazy stuff. China is mining data directly from workers' brains on an industrial scale. Published yesterday, updated today. So this thing is hot off the press. Government-backed surveillance projects are deploying brain-reading technology to detect changes in emotional states in employees on the production line, the military, and at the helm of high-speed trains. You can't even make this shit up. This is shocking. Written by Stephen Chen. On the surface, the production lines at Hangzhou Zhongheng Electric look like any other. Workers outfitted in uniforms, staff lines producing sophisticated equipment for telecommunication and other industrial sectors. But there's one big difference. The workers wear caps to monitor their brainwaves, data that management then uses to adjust the pace of production and redesign workflows, so says the company. The company said it could increase the overall efficiency of the workers by manipulating the frequency and length of break times to reduce mental stress. A little aside here, what if these wireless headsets that these people are forced to wear might be manipulating the frequencies of their brainwaves themselves? Hangzhou Electric is just one example of the large-scale application of brain surveillance devices to monitor people's emotions and other mental activities in the workplace, according to scientists and companies involved in the government-backed projects. Concealed in regular safety helmets or uniform hats, these lightweight wireless sensors constantly monitor the wearer's brainwaves and stream the data to computers that use artificial intelligence algorithms to detect emotional spikes such as depression, anxiety, and rage. Okay, what if you got the wrong brain waves? What if you're pissed off at work and they fire you? Then what? The technology is in widespread use around the world, but China has applied it on an unprecedented scale in factories, public transport, state-owned companies, and the military to increase the competitiveness of its manufacturing industry and to maintain social stability. It has also raised concerns about the need for regulation to prevent abuses in the workplace, right? What could possibly go wrong if your boss can continually monitor your mood and perhaps your thoughts with a wireless device, or potentially manipulate your brainwaves? The technology is also in use at the Hangzhou at State Grid Zhejiang Electric Power, where it has boosted company profits by about 2 million yuan, approximately 315 million US dollars, since it was rolled out in 2014. There's no doubt about its effect, Cheng Jingzhu said. Goes on and on, shocking thing. Jin said that at present, China's brain reading technology was on par with that in the West, but China was the only country where there had been reports of massive use of the technology in the workplace. In the United States, for example, applications have been limited to archers trying to improve their performance in competition. The unprecedented amount of data from users could help the system improve and enable China to surpass competitors over the next few years. This is where it gets real crazy. With improved speed and sensitivity, the device could even become a mental keyboard, allowing the user to control a computer or mobile phone with their mind. The research team confirmed the device and technology had been used in China's military operations, but declined to provide more information. That's creepy. The technology is also being used in medicine. Ma Hujian, a doctor at Shanghai Hospital in Shanghai, said the facility was working with Fudan University to develop a more sophisticated version of the technology to monitor a patient's emotions and prevent violent incidents. So it goes on and on. Shocking stuff. Shocking stuff from China. Krao Jiang, professor of management psychology at Beijing Normal University, said that while the devices could make business more competitive, and the technology could also be abused by companies, and I would say the government, I'm just going to add that in there, to control minds and infringe privacy, raising the specter of thought police. Thought police were the secret police in George Orwell's novel 1984. I don't know why that's acting up. Let me just delete that. Who investigated and punished people for personal and political thoughts not approved of by the authorities. There is no law or regulation to limit the use of this kind of equipment in China. The employer may have a strong incentive to use the technology for higher profit, and the employees are usually in too weak a position to say no, he said. The selling of Facebook data is bad enough. Brain surveillance can take privacy abuse to a whole new level. Lawmakers should act now to limit the use of emotion surveillance and give workers more bargaining power to protect their interests, Kwao said. The human mind should not be exploited for profit, right? On a similar vein, we're a little behind China in that regard, arguably, although, of course, your average American has their smartphone, smart standing for self-monitoring and recording technology, right? Arguably, these little bastards are listening to all our conversations, but what can you do? Interestingly, in the news today, Sprint and T-Mobile are set to join. That's right. The telecom giants merging in a $26.5 billion deal. New York AP. T-Mobile and Sprint reached a $26.5 billion agreement Sunday to combine in a deal that would reshape the U.S. wireless landscape by reducing it to 3 major cell phone providers. The company stressed that they plan to have more employees following the combination, particularly in rural areas, than they do as standalone companies. I never really heard of that. More employees after the merger. Sounds a little strange to me. They also emphasized that the deal would help accelerate their development of faster 5G wireless networks and ensure that the United States doesn't cede leadership on the technology to China. The 5G aspirations are at the heart of the agreement, and the new technology could allow companies to provide faster service to people's homes. Okay, if you're not familiar with 5G and the potential human health impacts of cell phones, smart meters, smart appliances, Wi-Fi, all that stuff, you should probably go over to the Environmental Health Trust and check out some of their documentation there, ehtrust.org. This organization is actually based right here in Wyoming, Teton Village, Wyoming, and founded by Deborah Davis, who wrote a great book called Disconnect. Shocking stuff. Maryland residents halt small cell 5G preemption bill and continue to fight. Scientific hearing at the Danish Parliament on cell phone radiation. The Nation reporting how big wireless made us think that cell phones are safe. And they've got a great report here, specifically on 5G. Let's see if I can find it. Key issues. Well, I don't know where it is exactly. I gotta dig it up. Oh, here we go. 5G and the Internet of Things. This is, I don't know, man. This is some creepy shit. This 5G scientific overview of the human health risks. Yeah, watch this video if you want to. But long story short, with this 5G network, they're talking about building thousands, literally tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of mini cell towers to be built in neighborhoods. The 5G network will require the build out of literally hundreds of thousands of new wireless antennas in neighborhood cities and towns. A cellular small cell or other transmitter will be placed every 2 to 10 homes, according to estimates. The purpose of this massive infrastructure build out of small cells, distributed antenna systems, and microcells is to increase range and capacity in populated urban areas and prepare for the 5G rollout. 5G frequencies will utilize higher frequencies that do not travel as far as the lower frequencies. Remember, one thing I learned in physics back in college, the higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength, the more powerful the radiation is, right? Let's go look at the electromagnetic spectrum just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. I'm not a total dummy. And I'm concerned about this stuff. I hope you are too. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wavelength. This is a crap ass image. But yeah. Anyway, enough of that. Read up on 5G if you feel so inclined. In other tech news, this is really, I don't know, this is a bummer. Coming from the LA Times, electronics recycling innovator is going to prison for trying to extend the computer's lives in the area of planned obsolescence, where these smartphones are designed to break, right? Where you buy a brand new computer and it runs great. It runs like greased lightning for the first couple of weeks or months, but then you start getting updates from Microsoft or whoever. Next thing you know, your computer is slow as molasses. So within the matter of a couple of years, this computer that you spent, whatever, $1,000 on, perfectly good machine, is totally shot. Real slow, real glitchy, buggy, especially if you happen to be an activist. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who they'll buy a new computer. They're an activist. They're all excited. Computer works great. But shortly after they log into all their accounts on it and it becomes clear whose computer this is, next thing you know, Windows Update installed. Against your will, without your consent, the computer just says, you know what, we're installing an update now. And the computer doesn't run nearly as well afterwards. So this guy trying to resolve some of those issues with computers that really should work perfectly fine, and divert them from the landfills, put them back into service. But instead, he's going to prison for 15 months. A Southern California man who built a sizable business out of recycling electronic waste is headed to federal prison for 15 months after a federal appeals court in Miami rejected his claim that the restore disks he made to extend computers' lives had no financial value, instead ruling that he had infringed on Microsoft Corp to the tune of $700,000. This guy, brilliant guy. This guy, you can read all about him, but basically he was it says right here, a renowned innovator in the field of electronic waste, or e-waste, using discarded parts to do things such as construct an electric car, which in a test far outdistanced a Tesla on a single charge. He built the first electronic hybrid recycling facility in the U.S., which turns discarded cell phones and other electronics into functional devices, slowing the stream of harmful chemicals and metals contained in those devices into landfills and the environment. Okay, so this guy is exactly the kind of person that our world needs right now. And he's being punished for creating these recovery disks. Important to note here that he wasn't even trying to make any money off of these disks, okay? Lundgren had 28,000 of these recovery disks made, which are basically identical to the disks that you get when you buy a computer. In case your computer breaks down or your hard drive crashes, you need to install a new hard drive. You need to reformat the hard drive. But of course, these disks get lost, so he replaced them. And he made them and shipped them to a broker in Florida. Their plan was to sell the disks to computer refurbishing shops for 25 cents a piece. So the refurbishers could provide the disks to used computer buyers and wouldn't have to take the time to create the disks themselves. That's right, all this information, you can go on the internet and download a recovery. It's beyond the tech capacity of a lot of people to go on some other computer, download these files, burn them onto a disk, and then use it to restore their own hard drive. So this guy was just trying to help out, charging 25 cents a piece for these disks. But U.S. Customs seized the shipment of disks and began investigating. Disks never sold. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, Microsoft and federal prosecutors valued the disks at $299 each, or the cost of a brand new Windows operating system. And Lundgren's indictment alleged he had cost Microsoft $8.3 million in lost sales. By the time of sending a Microsoft letter to Hurley, and a Microsoft expert witness had reduced the value of the disks to $25, stating that was what Microsoft charges refurbishers for the disks. So real bummer there. Again, this guy wasn't some hacker. He wasn't trying to rip anybody off. He wasn't trying to scam anybody. Eric Lundgren's intent was to keep e-waste, toxic e-waste, out of the landfill. Tiffany Stone, thanks for that great comment. Back to our first story of the day. She says, we covered this heartbreaking death on the Elk Refuge Saturday, maybe Friday night, as a suicide. And Tiffany just chiming in there. Females don't use guns for suicide. First red flag. It hardly ever happens. Fishy. That's an interesting point there, Tiffany. Thank you. In cryptocurrency news, crypto market holding steady around $430 billion, down from all-time highs around New Year's of $830 billion. Lows recently around $230 billion. So the market has rebounded almost 100% from the recent lows. Of course, we're seeing some tanking today, but some winners, some losers. General trend, market cap climbing. I don't know why Tron is going off, but it's up 16.23% on the day, and it has had a huge run over the last week. So take that to the bank if you want to. But cryptos, I don't know too much about cryptos. I do know that they were originally intended to set us free from the banking cartel, to set us free from fiat currencies, to set us free from the fraudsters on Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, the International Bank of what's that? What is it? Sorry. Now I'm all frustrated because I forgot one. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the central banks of all these all these different countries, and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, cryptocurrencies trying to replace the profit-driven global banking cartel with something better. Will it be co-opted? Will it become what it was originally intended to be? I don't know. But I do know that there's the opportunity to make some money there. And if you really believe in it, you might want to invest a few bucks into the crypto realm, but don't invest more than you can afford to lose. On that note, we are on to the scopes for the day. Okay, scopes for the day. Let me know what you want me to read, and I'll read it to you. Again, I'm not a big believer in horoscopes. I'm not like some astrologer or anything, but I think that it's a good opportunity for us to chit-chat at the end of the show. I'm a Taurus. I don't know why JacquelineBegar.com is not showing us the star ratings today, but I do have those here in the Jackson Hole Daily, so I'm going to try to find the scopes. Let me know if you want yours read, and I'll get it to you. Let's see. So much paper. As an interesting aside, it's amazing how much paper is wasted by the mainstream media. Jackson Hole Daily, as usual, about 70% ads, 20% fluff, 10% actual news. Taurus, that's me. I'm having a 5-star day, or so they say. You understand the art of deferring to others, which you are able to do naturally. You know what you want. Stay light and easy, and don't be too worried about what is yet to happen. You have no idea which way a situation might go. Tonight, have some fun with a loved one. So there we go. Let's see what else we got. I'm just going to not look at that because there's no stars on there. Carrie Mark, looking for Gemini. Coming at you, Carrie. 3-star day for you. Remain easygoing. Whether you're at work, at home, or going to one of your many appointments, the more jovial your temperament, the easier your day will be. You might be creating a problem by making an assumption. Try to stay open. And tonight, Carrie, get some rest first. So there you go. Dawn Neptune Adams, thank you so much for tuning in, Dawn. Always great to see your beautiful smiling face in the comments section. You Aquarians are having a 4-star day. Use your imagination to help you make money. I got to try that. A boss or higher up knows a lot and shares his or her feedback. Be as realistic as possible when you are standing on new ground. Curb a sense of frustration by dealing directly with the source. Tonight, Dawn, make it your treat. It's too bad you're not around here, Dawn, or you could take me out to dinner. Chris Hardgrave, Capricorn, coming at you. 5-star day. Chris, or excuse me, 4-star day. Your depth and insight reflect in your choice of friends. Reach out to someone close to you who seems to be eyeing and discussing a new life direction. This person is likely to try to get you to join him or her. As a result, discussions could be lively. Tonight, Chris, where your friends are. Moving along. Daniel Reichert, what's up, Daniel? Always great to see you in the comments, too, my dear friend Daniel. Pisces, 4-star day. Your instincts help you move to the next level. Your creativity helps drive a unique point of view. Listen to a friend or a relative who understands what you want and need. He or she will guide you into a positive state of mind. You feel more secure. Tonight, Daniel, out among the crowds. Pat Fish knows the way to my heart, and that is flattery. Stay buff and swollen. Yes, sir. I got to keep working out. How's Libra look today? Let's find out. Thanks for the delightful compliment there on my physique. 3-star day for you, Pat Fish. Be aware of the costs of continuing as you have been. Curb your spending. That's easier said than done. Understand that your domestic life might be going through some radical changes, Pat. Be careful around someone younger than you who seems to have a hot temper. Tonight, proceed with more awareness. Pat, I'm curious if that one rings true to you, because that's a heavy scope right there. Michael and Leslie Ann Bichard. Leslie Ann, I know that's you there. I know that's you because you told me. And Gemini, you are having a 3-star day. I already read that one, so hopefully you got that one. I'll read it again, though. Remain easygoing whether you're at home, at work, or going to one of your many appointments. The more jovial your temperament, the easier your day will be. You might be creating a problem by making an assumption. Try to stay open. And tonight, get some exercise first. Paul Jericho asks, did I do Capricorn yet? Yeah, I did. 4-star day. I'll do it again for you, Paul. Your depth and insight reflect in your choice of friends. Reach out to someone close to you who seems to be eyeing and discussing a new life direction. This person is likely to try to get you to join him or her. As a result, discussions could be lively. Tonight, where your friends are. Danny Carr, looking for Aries, coming at you, brother. 3-star day. Hang in there, Danny. Your imagination is working overtime. You enter the day ready to share a few of your dreams. Don't be upset by others' judgments. Your ideas will become only stronger with feedback. Your anger could be misdirected. Be careful. Tonight, make time for a loved one. Moving along. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paul Jericho. What's up, Cameron St. John? Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Daniel. Melissa Spurlock, you're looking good too. Beautiful. Thanks for chiming in. Greg L. Cheney says, do those glasses cut down on the glare from snow? I need a new pair, and I like those. Let me tell you, these glasses do cut down on the glare from snow. And if you want yourself a pair, you can go over to Pit Viper Sunglasses and get some. Good friends, Pit Viper. You know, they're kind of a funny company, but this is their new style, the number 2s. They're like glacier glasses. Then they make these goofy other ones. These are some buddies of mine down in Salt Lake City. The corduroy has got a little bit lighter lens than this. I'm wearing the Tijuana. And they make another couple pairs. These are probably the best ones. The rubbers, right? They got funny names. You know, it's a funny company. The rubbers, that's actually a rubberized black frame that's got the same lenses as these ridiculously colorful ones that I'm wearing. So there you go. Check out pitvipersunglasses.com. Big thanks to the guys at Pit Viper for hooking me up with some shades. Leo, Peter, Giampietro, coming at you, brother. Leo, 4-star day. Center yourself when dealing with a volatile family member. You will note how the person in question is receptive to your energy. Optimism surrounds your household and or domestic life. To accomplish more, reorganize your schedule. Tonight, air out an issue. So there you go, Peter. All those lovely Leos out there. Paul Jericho, thank you. Peter, I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Fanny, thank you. Danny Carr, thank you. Greg L. Cheney, thank you, bro. Leslie Ann Bouchard asking, where are you? I'm in beautiful Alpine, Wyoming, reporting live for you at Wake Up News here on the algorithmically censored Facebook. Carrie Mark, they are a lot of fun. Jorge the Cunha, looking for Scorps, coming at you, brother. 4-star day. Also, Jerry Wallace, if he tunes in, will want to see this. 4-star day. You are reasonable. You are personable, fun, and ready to call the shots. Others appreciate your strength and independence. Angry feelings could emerge in what you consider to be an easy conversation. Listen to those who might be upset. Try to get to the source of an issue. And tonight, Jorge, say yes. Moving along. Scott, thank you, brother, for tuning in. On that note, we're out of comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your boy Mug, beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. Again, if you want to support my work, I'm trying to do this show at least every other day. I'm trying to make a living at it, and it's going pretty well. I'm making $357 a month from 19 patrons at the moment, and then I can get a few bucks through PayPal too. But I could definitely use some more support there. If you like this show, if you like, my vibe and what I'm trying to accomplish here, maybe you could support it. Even $1 a month. If you're strapped for cash, $1 a month goes a long way. If I can get 1,000 people to give me $1 a month or $3 a month or whatever, well, you know what? That'll help me stay fed and help the show continue to grow. I know it's easy. There's a lot of people asking for money out there, but hopefully you appreciate what we're doing here at Wake Up News. And again, if you needed a reason to support my work, just the other day, April 27th, was my birthday. Big thanks to everybody who posted birthday greetings on my wall. Had like 140 people reach out and say happy birthday to me. So big props to that. This video, speaking of my wall, I'm going to paste this one into the links there because this is a really good listen from Kevin Merger. I can't pronounce his name. I think he's French-Canadian. But it's a very interesting video that I really enjoy. The operating strategies and principles of the depopulation lobby. Definitely worth checking out. You know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it kind of seems like we're living through a global soft kill depopulation agenda. And, you know, I know it sucks. Not fun to think about. But on the plus side, we have a choice. We can choose what we eat. We can choose what we drink. We can choose where we live to some extent. You know, of course, it'd be nice to have a whole buttload of money to make all this stuff a lot easier. But this video, definitely worth checking out. 12 principles of the depopulation lobby. On that note, I'm signing off. Again, patreon.com/Max Mogren, or you can hit me up at paypal.me/Max Mogren to support my work. That'd be great. I'm not actually in Jackson, Wyoming. I'm in Alpine, Wyoming. But Paul Jericho chiming in there, back to the depopulation thing. I just caught a report about millennials having less babies than needed to keep the population up, right? And, you know, the consolidation of why aren't millennials having babies? Well, I mean, it's because millennials are largely broke, right? The average millennial doesn't have any money. Pretty hard to find a high-paying job unless you want to work for Facebook or Google or, I don't know, some other tech company that's arguably destroying freedom, breeding economic inequality, rendering human employees obsolete. You know, I know from my experience, it sure is hard to make a living as an independent, fearless, no bullshit journalist. You know, it's funny. You know, these days, if you criticize somebody based on their sexual orientation or whatever, you're a bully, right? But if you criticize somebody for thinking outside of the box, you're just an average mainstream media pundit or politician, academic, whatever. The most maligned group in the world are arguably the conspiracy theorists, aka the reality realists, who acknowledge that, you know what, some people are assholes. Some people work together to try to rip people off. In fact, corporations themselves are essentially psychopathic entities that will lie and cheat and steal in order to maximize profit, right? As simple as that. Arguably, every corporation on the planet is a conspiracy to get as much money as possible. And arguably, money itself, the modern centrally controlled fiat currency system, is in fact a conspiracy as well. I don't know about you, but I find it pretty frustrating to have to spend so much of my life focused on how to make ends meet. So many people spending 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week working low-paying, shitty jobs just for the right to continue eating, drinking, and breathing on this planet. Money itself is a conspiracy, my friends. And on that note, I'm signing off. Your boy Mug. Wake Up Wyoming, April 30th, 2018. Stay awake, stay aware, stay optimistic. Don't let the bastards get you down. Remember, terrorism is the rule through fear and intimidation or outright violence. And the media is arguably disseminating weaponized information designed to distract us, to divide us, to deceive us, to deter us from making positive change, and to depress the shit out of us. So what's the best thing you can do? What's the best thing any of us can do to fight back against this system? Be happy. Take care of yourself and the ones you love. Your boy Moog signing off for now, but I'll be back alive again real soon. One love.